Hello and well met, everybody. This is Fantasy Grounds Academy with founder Leroon. I am going to build characters using the built-in character wizard for the DnD5e rule set. There are other rule sets, but character creation is one of the things that is very different for each given rule set. So if you're familiar with the rest of the other rule sets, that is an asset to yourself. I pretty much know how to do characters in 5th edition. I guess I'm a one-trick pony. I do know a little bit about Pathfinder and some of the other rule sets, but my main comfort zone is the DnD5e rule set. So if you know how to build characters in Fantasy Grounds, please step up and we will help you film it, and we'll make it a part of our community guide so that other people who want to try different rule sets can also follow along with those. So with that said, I'm going to go into some givens or some assumptions. So we're assuming that you have access either to a Game Master's table or you may have your own content, depending on what your needs are and what you have done recently and in the past with your familiarity with rule sets and different forms of role-playing games. So we're using the Fantasy Grounds Virtual Tabletop, just Fantasy Grounds Unity. We're assuming that you have some sort of license, or maybe you have access to another person's table to create characters. If this is your table and you're doing this on your own, if you go to the library on the bottom right, you should have some content loaded, regardless of what it is. You may just have the SRD. So if that's the case, load that in the basic rules. And you'll have enough to kind of make a generic character. It won't be as detailed, you won't have as many options, but you'll still be able to follow along somewhat. The character builder may or may not work very well with Homebrew, and it wasn't designed for the SRD. It was mainly designed for the player's handbook. So if you have trouble with it, that could possibly be it. So for the most part, the character wizard has come a long ways. It's a little better than it was when I first started using it. They've added features, they've cleaned it up. It's coming along pretty well. So I'm going to go to the characters options over here on the right. And if you go to your options menu, and if you don't see that over there, you can click on sidebar and then switch the options to create PC. And that will give you the list that you need to create a character or to level up. I'm going to add parcels because we're going to use that later, so you can customize the view over here. So I'm going to go ahead and close all that. Next thing, I'm going to click on characters. And as you can see, there's already some characters here that were created. I can also go ahead and create a wizard character by clicking character wizard. Or if you want to do it the old manual way, you can just click this green plus button and it'll bring up a blank character sheet. And that way you do the old drag and drop method. This method over here, it helps get around the doubling up of your skills, and you can do it in pretty much any order. However, once you save it, you're committed to those changes. So just keep that in mind. So do all your changing now at first level, because later on when you're building your character, and you get up to like 2nd or 3rd level, you're not going to be able to easily go back and edit the character. So just keep that in mind when you're using the character builder. So for right now, you can only do these changes and all these major decisions at 1st level. If you decide at 3rd level you don't want to be a dwarf anymore, or you want to alter your character sheet, you're basically going to have to start over, or you're going to have to manually edit the character sheet, and you need to kind of have a good understanding of Fantasy Grounds before you go in and poking around. But you can do it, but it just may not turn out correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to close the character selection window. Again, I clicked on the character wizard to bring that up. So here's the character wizard. So you can build this in any order that you like, but I'm going to start with race as it suggests here. You can see the little exclamation marks. That means that the requirements are not satisfied. So I need to pick a race. I was thinking about creating a monk of some sort. So I'm going to do a Ganassi monk build or something like that. Maybe even a wizard. I have to think about it. So we'll just go with a race. I want to do something that's not as typical as some of the other. Maybe a Goliath monk would be kind of cool because they're pretty tough. So a Goliath monk. All right, that sounds good. So I'll click the Goliath race. And as you can see, this little green check marks checks off. And the stats checks off because it gives you the standard array right off the bat. So it gives you, the array that you would pick for just a generic build. So I'm going to go ahead and click this race. If you want to read about it, you click on the little banner next to the title, and you can read about it before you make the commitment. Because you can, at this point, you can go back to the race banner, and you can actually select a different race at this point. So if, let's say, you don't like what you read, or something is different that you weren't really familiar with, so maybe you want to go with a Firbolg instead. So Firbolgs are kind of a giant race, so let's go with that. That's not a very common race, so I like that. We'll make him a monk still. So that's his race. It's going to be a Firbolg, and then we're going to click on stats. Now you can keep the given stats you have now. Over here on the right is the preview of what the character looks like so far, and it already has the +1 to strength and +2 to wisdom added. So I think a Firbolg will make a pretty cool monk. So if you don't like the standard array, you can use the drop down, and you can do a point buy, you can manually enter, or you can do a dice roll. So let's try the dice roll and see what happens. So as soon as you click on it, it's going to roll a bunch of dice into the chat window. And as you can see, there's a list here of all the stats that it rolled, and it puts them in here automatically, and you can switch these around where you want them. So that wasn't too bad of a roll. It's pretty average. The 9 I would probably put somewhere where you don't need it, and that way, it'll come out. So maybe you leave it in strength just so that, maybe you're a finesse fighter or something like that. But that's a way you can roll. And then the other thing is a standard array, which is what it had before, which just assigns it, and you can just move your stats around. And then the other is a point buy system. So you add your points in. Usually it's 27 points. And then you can come in here and adjust these. And as you purchase stats and points, the cost of it goes up. So if I want to bring all these or most of these up to 10, that's going to cost a couple points to do that. But this will bring you up to your total. So we'll see what happens. So your point buy total would normally be 27. So let's see what for rules is written that is. Your DM might give you more or less. So there's the 12 I've used. Where's the unspent points? Unspent. It has a little note down here. Now let's go with the let's go with the dex. A couple. We'll go with strength. Make that go up. So strength is 14 now. Go to wisdom. They get a good wisdom, so you don't have to put a lot of points in that. And then for con, let's give him a couple points there. He's getting there. So we have 14, 12, 13, 10, 15, and 10. So we're getting there. So one more on dex should help. And then I'm going to put one more on strength. And I got one more point left, discretionary. So I think I'm going to put it in intelligence. And that gives him your 27 point buy system right there. So that's... It says here, characters may select ability score improvements at 4th level and higher. It's just a little note. So that doesn't happen until 4th level, so we don't have to worry about that. So that's the stats. We have 15, 13, 13, 11, 15, and 10. So this is our monk character. So that's not too bad for stats for a monk. Now I'm going to go and put in the class. So I'm going to click on the class button. And as you can see, the classes come up. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the monk. And then I get to pick 2 proficiencies for the monk. So we'll see what happens there. So acrobatics for sure, and stealth probably. Maybe athletics too, for like climbing ropes and stuff. So yeah, I'll do that. So he has acrobatics and athletics, so that's really helpful. He doesn't have any proficiencies or anything like that left to choose, so we'll go to background. So I do see this individual as being more of a outlander or a hermit, perhaps a far traveler. I think I like that. Be the James Carradine Firbolg for Kung Fu reference. So far traveler is going to be his background. So then you can come down here and you can select a language and a tool proficiency. So usually you have an instrument or some kind of dice set, or maybe it's a chess set or playing cards. I think I'm going to give him some pipes or some kind of pan flute. If you imagine this big Firbolg with a pan flute, that's going to be hilarious. He's got this little teeny flute that he pulls out, and it's almost too small for him, but he can play the hell out of it. Select languages. So he has, let's see, Common, Elvish, and Giant. So I'm going to probably go with Dwarvish or Goblin. Yeah, let's speak one of the Goblinoid languages. That's helpful, especially with Encounter. So there's that. So this is the main things that you're satisfying here with when you're building your characters. Those are the four main things. If you get to this point, you're doing pretty good. You can go back at this point and make some changes if you don't like the way the mix is, or maybe there's something you're missing and you want to change it. So do all that before you hit save. So don't save it until you're sure that you got everything you want. And what this also does is Character Wizards is in your background and your class, and sometimes your racial choices for skills. You might double up on these if you use the manual method if you're not familiar with it. And this kind of helps you so you can't double pick. And also this gives you an idea to preview what things are going to look like when they're all stacked up. When you're doing it manually and dragging options over, it assumes you know what you want ahead of time. And once you drag it over, you're committed. So this way you don't have to commit to anything. I'm just going to go ahead and call him Monk. And then hyphen key, or Monk key, or Monk Kai. His name is Monk Kai, but they call him Monkey because he's got key points. Haha. And let's go to inventory. So the inventory allows you to choose your starting equipment. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you own it, but you are proficient with those, so you can go ahead and add these. So I'm going to do the Explorer's Pack. I am going to have him use probably a quarterstaff. That sounds a lot more like his style. He could do a great club or something, but I think a nice quarterstaff or some kind of, smaller weapon or something that's not quite as heavy. The quarterstaff it is. He gets 10 darts, that's included. And then he gets to pick his background choice for whatever things he wants for his playing set. So I think I'm going to give him dice to make it simpler. I think he throws bones once in a while. And that's it. I mean, that's really all you have to do to add to your character. So that's the basic stuff for at level 1. After this point, you can customize and add more things. But that'll just give you your starting background equipment and your basically your choices of items from your class and such. Now we go to spells. So if you had any spells, you would have this. Basically, you would have this option come up if you had any spells. You don't have any at this point. And then you have feats. So if you were going to do feats, this would be something where you would add those if you had them. So at this point, you can save it, and this would be saved at level 1. So I'm going to call this Monk Kai level 1. So that way I have an idea of what it was. So if I pick it from the character selection window, I'll have a better idea. So I don't have to actually grab the character to preview it. So that's that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I hit save. So once I hit save, I'm committed to these changes, and then the regular character sheet will pop up. So if I hit save, that is basically what I have now. So if you want to change anything, you're going to have to do a lot of work manually. So this part hasn't changed. So whether you build it manually or not, you still are, at this point, you're stuck with your choices. So if you want to build another character, you can. If you wanted to change the race on this, you'd have to go and manually adjust all of the changes that were made, plus any of the features that were added. So it's up to you. So at this point, you may be wondering how you level up. So it isn't too hard. So if you go to the main tab, let's say you've come to a point where you're ready to go up to the next level. So on your character sheet, under the class and level, if you click on that, that'll bring up this little class and level box. The level up button is there if you want to level up your character. So if you have enough hit points, or experience points to go up in level, let's say you're at 900 and your next level is going to be 2700. This is manual, by the way. It doesn't do anything to the character sheet. It's just a record keeping thing. When your DM offers you to level up, you just click the level up button. It brings up your sheet. The increased level is here. So you just click there. It's a drop down menu and you select 2 for level 2. There's a Tasha's class option here for a dedicated weapon. I think I'll take that because it basically gives me the onus to have that quarterstaff as my dedicated weapon. And if there's any other things that needed to be added, you would highlight them here and add them as you went. So you don't have to do this unless you need to. And then you would just click save to commit to the changes that you made. And I would change the description here to level 2, just so I didn't get confused. And then now you're leveled up. So it's really not too hard to level up. I'm going to double click on this portrait and give him a portrait for his character sheet, just so I have one in there. So there's some fantasy portraits here that are from the old rules, which is kind of funny, or the old classic. And then you have FG Fantasy, which is basically your new school things that were added after the Kickstarter. So this is some content that basically was provided with the new updated rule set for Fantasy Grounds Unity. So in here, there are a bunch of different choices you can make. There's quite a few in here. I'm pretty happy with what they've done with that. So I think I'm just going to pick something here. This is a Firbolg, so I'm not going to really probably find anything decent. So I'm just going to grab this bald Eastern monk-looking character, even though it doesn't look like a Firbolg. And then, if I was going to add any inventory or organize that, I could do that at this point. If you want to add your alignment and your notes back here from your background, you can do so. And as a matter of fact, if you go to your background and you click on this Far Traveler, it gives you a description of your background. And then it'll help you with choices and things that you may want to add to your character for flavor. So in this case, it talks about, that you've come from a long ways. And there's a table here. This is why are you here for this background. So if you roll, looks like he was a pilgrim. So you can drag and drop that text into the notes. So he's made a pilgrimage here for some reason. If you don't like that, you can always re-choose it. And then there's some backgrounds down here. So he might be a pilgrim from Karatur. So maybe he occasionally travels there as a diplomat, or maybe he's going on a walkabout or like a life quest type thing. And then he has a feature called All Eyes on You, so he's a little bit odd because of the way he dresses or how he carries himself. It's hard to say. So you have these tables that you can roll on. So I'm just going to roll one of the personality traits. So he has a strong code of honor and sense of propriety that others don't comprehend. I think I like that. Goes very well with his background and his choice. So those are things that you can add to your character, or you can make up your own. And if you come over here to the Actions tab, you're going to have to change the ammo if you have any. So let's say you have 20 darts. Let me look at his inventory and see if that's true. Oh, it's 10. That's right. So I go to the Actions tab. I'm going to change that to 10 to reflect what he has in his inventory. That's manual. And then for the quarterstaff, I'm going to use it as a two-handed weapon, so I'm going to change it to 2 because he doesn't use a shield or another weapon. And it's dedicated, so that's his 1d8 plus 2 is the damage on the quarterstaff. And if you go to the abilities area, there is a dedicated weapon option. You can take it at second level. It has to be a simple weapon. You have to be proficient with it. It has to not be heavy or special. So you can train yourself the use of variety of weapons, not just simple melee weapons. Whenever you finish a short rest, you can touch one weapon, you focus your key on it, and then count the weapon as a monk weapon until you finish this feature again. So it's kind of cool. It gives you the ability to treat it like a monk weapon so that you don't get the penalties and such. So there's some customization that you'll need to do or look at as you're building characters. So the character wizard doesn't cover that. This is stuff that's above and beyond. This is more of your customization as opposed to building a character. So this is just the background, the details, what spells you're gonna end up with in the long run, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to your character sheet to customize it. But at this point, you have the basics, and you really don't need to do a whole lot else except for maybe straighten out your inventory. And then potentially, if you know how to code your character sheet, or if that's available with your rule set, you can add your automation codes back there if you have those. And then you can fill out your faction and your DCI number if you're playing an Adventures League, and you can keep a log back here. Like I said, notes is for the role playing, so he's going to be a male. I don't know how old Firbolgs get, but he looks like he's probably about 28. And I don't know what their height and weight is without looking up their actual stat block, but I'll leave that blank for now. He's going to be neutral good, so that's his alignment. And notice I spelled it out all the way. I didn't put abbreviation there. If he has a deity or belief, you can put that there. So you have places to put notations, and especially on your abilities, if you have something where you have to pick something, that you would write that down as a little note here. So for the Firbolg magic, they get some things that they have: detect magic and disguise self. So that's pretty cool. And then they have a hidden step. So they actually have a bonus action where they can turn invisible. They have a powerful build, so they're considered one size larger when it comes to dragging and lifting and pulling. And speech of the beast and leaf, you can communicate in a limited manner with plants and animals. So that's pretty cool. So that has a really good racial traits, which I wasn't expecting. I've never built a Firbolg, so that's pretty cool. So then you have your proficiencies here and your languages. So this isn't too bad for building characters in Fantasy Grounds. Just remember that Fantasy Grounds did not start off as a character builder. It's mainly to keep track of your campaigns. The character building aspect kind of evolved over time. So it's one of those things where the rule set in this case was already built. They have to go back and retroactively make it work for everything. Whereas Pathfinder 2 actually had a built-in character wizard near the beginning, and it grew up with the rule set. So it's probably going to work a lot better because it's actually customized as they go, as opposed to trying to go back and fix all the little changes and things that were made retroactively. So just keep that in mind. It's not perfect, but it does a majority of what you need to do in the beginning. All that customization comes with time, experience, necessity, what your resources are, that sort of thing. So don't worry too much about that. Your game master will help you with that. So that is basically it. That is a Monk Firbolg. He's second level. And again, if you want to level up, you just go to the class and level, click on the magnifying glass, click on level up. It brings this up. And if you want to go to level 3 now, I can just select level 3. And now it wants me to pick my specialization because I've actually began my journey into my class specialization at level 3. So I'm going to do the Way of the Kensei, and I have the dedicated weapon option is what I wanted. So that was basically all the changes I had to make, and then I hit save, and that just adds whatever extra things on here, and it gives you some more hit points and that sort of thing. So that's just something that, and it added the features that were included, like deflect missiles was added. They added the monastic tradition, all that sort of thing. So that is the monk, and hopefully that helps you guys out a little bit. If you get lost or if I went too fast, go ahead and make comments in the chat. I'm hoping that you'll have access to the content. If not, get with somebody that does. You come into Fantasy Grounds Academy and try to get you some classes to help you with character creation, give you a little experience before you invest or before you buy into playing with this particular platform. So anyhow, have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your week. Tomorrow's Friday, so keep that in mind, and everybody